Well, hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Clement, documentary programmer for the 2020 Mill Valley Film Festival, and also one of the programmers for the Docklands Documentary Film Festival, which has been incorporated in this year's event. And I want to thank all of our supporters and especially thank everyone who has turned out for the festival in this very unusual year that we find ourselves in. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Joris Postema, the director of Stop Filming Us. And welcome, Joris.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Mill Valley Film Festival. And I came across your film at the Movies That Matter Film Festival, where you won the Dutch Movies Matter Award.
Yes.
And we're just very, very proud to be able to host the U.S. premiere of this incredible, complex, and, a film that has generated a lot of discussion already out there that I've seen out on the internet. And it's definitely guaranteed to generate a lot more coming up.
Yeah.
So let's start off. Just tell me how you came to this film. What set you out on the journey?
Yeah, it started quite a while ago, actually. I think it was 10 years ago that I went to Goma in northeastern Congo for an NGO, a Dutch NGO, to make a film for them about an AIDS clinic they were opening in Goma. And if you Google northeastern Congo, all the images you see on the internet is just misery and war and disease and violence. It's just terrible. So my mind was already set in this negative way. And then I was in this big car and they picked me up from Kigali in Rwanda. We drove to Goma and crossed the border, and I could do nothing. I couldn't walk on the street. I couldn't film on the street. I was sleeping in this really secured house with a guard and a panic button and all kinds of locks, and it felt like the scariest place on earth, to be honest, like hell on earth, really. And I was thinking, one day I'll come back and then I'll make a film about these people living in these conditions. So a few years later, I did actually go back, but with a local organization. And they were late picking me up at the border. So I was just there on my own in this terrifying place, waiting for the people to show up, being really scared that something would happen to me. And actually, it was great. It was just, I was waiting for 30 minutes. People stopped to talk to me. And afterwards, I could just film everywhere. I could walk on the street. I was sleeping in a hotel, no security at all, drinking beers at night with people. And I got really confused that the same city has two such different perspectives. And this is where the idea of the film was born.
It was like going into a different reality.
Completely different, the opposite.
Yeah. And is that where the germ of this film began?
Yeah, this is where it started, because it's, the stereotypes we all see in Holland, but I guess in the States it's more or less the same, are so negative. And of course it's happening. There's a lot of misery going on in northeastern Congo, but it's just one reality. There's many more. But we never see them. The people I worked with, they told me that never has there been a film made in their region that was not connected to violence. So everything is always about violence, because as Europeans, as Dutch people, we know this is the way it is there. So you go there wearing those glasses of violence and misery. So this is what you're going to get and going to show to the people at home. And I really wanted to do that difference.
But as soon as you got out on the street, it was quite tense from the very beginning, with people yelling at you in the street and demanding money for their images. Were you surprised at this?
No, I think, I mean, ever since the genocide in Rwanda, which has been 25 years ago almost, they're used to so many Western camera crews and photographers that they're really aware of their value. I think really something like that. So they understand the concept, and they know that I'm not there for nothing. They know I'm making some money with the film, and they want part of it. In a way, it's quite understandable, no?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But did it surprise you?
Not so much. but it's also because I've been there quite a few times, and the first times, of course, mostly without a camera. So I've been looking around, and I understood a little bit the way it works with all the media coverage from there. So it didn't really surprise me. What surprised me a bit more is that they were also they didn't want to be photographed also by Congolese people sometimes. Which to me was a big difference.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of when I started realizing that this was actually going to be a film within a film.
Yeah, I think the film is really about the position of the white Western filmmaker in places like Goma, because I mean, if you're not really aware of the colonial past and of the power inequality coming from it between Congo and the West, and the privilege we have as white people filming there, then I guess the film you make probably says more about your own background than it says about the people and the places you film. And I really thought it was important to show this mechanism, to show that really we are wearing glasses, and it's not the truth. We're just showing one part of reality. And it sounds so logical, but somehow it still is a big thing for filmmakers.
Yeah, definitely. Now, usually when they go in, with the NGOs go in, do they have a local film crew, or do they bring their own film crew?
I think they're working more and more with local film crews. But it's still a bit problematic now, because it's those NGOs, of course, the people making the policies, they are in offices in New York and in Amsterdam and in London. And they're making the policies that the people over there, they have to do. So if they ask a local photographer to make photos, as you see Lei in the film, she has to sign a contract, so she knows exactly what kind of photos they want. So it's not, in a sense, a local Congolese view of the refugee camp. It's still a Western view, but it's made by a Congolese woman. And of course, she kind of finds a little bit between the lines, and she makes the photos a bit more nuanced than Western photographers mostly do. But it's a tricky slope.
Yeah, that was very obvious with that one woman, Leia, is her name?
Yeah, Lei.
Yeah. What was that like for her?
I think it was for her, it was very difficult, because she does this a lot of the time, and it's already a big dilemma for her also, because she really also wants to, because in her own work, in her free work, she really shows a different side of northeastern Congo and of Goma. But then of course, she has to earn some money, and then she does projects like this, and it's a dilemma, I think, for her to make these photos and perpetuate a stereotype she really doesn't want to perpetuate. But as she says, these things are happening, and it has to be told, and it has to be shown to the world as well. So it's better maybe that she does it than that I would do it. And then the day we were filming in the camp, of course, was really difficult, because normally it's already difficult. But then there's this two white people, because the cameraman was also white, also walking through the camp, filming the photographers. So everybody was just screaming and laughing and following us. It was quite nice, actually.
Yeah, it was quite dramatic too.
Also, yeah.
Well, while I was watching this, I was thinking that the Ebola crisis in Africa appears to have been quite lucrative for some.
Yeah.
And also the birth of many conspiracy theories and local discontent. And it was still evident in one of your subjects there was talking about working with Netflix.
Yeah.
And setting up some kind of deal with Netflix. So yeah, that's also another thing that's happening over there with the locals, right?
Yeah, well, the Netflix, I think some people came from the States, but they were afraid to go into the Ebola area, so they went back again. So the film was never made, as I understood it. And it's I think they call it Ebola business in Goma. So they, yeah, because for example, it was almost impossible to hire a car because all the cars were hired to the NGOs, and I mean the prices go up. Also, hotel rooms and transcribers, for example, also very difficult to find. So this is a problem, inflation, and also again with all the policies made in Western capitals, offices. It doesn't always really work very well on the ground in northeastern Congo. So there was a lot of resistance to the influx of people trying to stop the virus. As you probably are aware of, I mean, people were killed, I think, and health centers were attacked and burned.
Right. So it is become an industry there for people, local people in the media.
How do you mean?
Well, it's become a business for like that one person that we see in the film who is dealing with Netflix. This is livelihood.
Yeah. This is livelihood, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a huge, I think somebody told me there's 250 Western NGOs in Goma. So the whole economy is NGO based in a big part because this, of course, quite comparatively, there's a lot more money there than there is in Congolese jobs. So there's many people from Goma also earning money from Western things. Yeah.
Right. So it's quite a dilemma. And about halfway through the film, it seemed like you were accused and challenged by your own crew that you put together. And it was actually put to a vote whether you should stay or go. Yeah. And whether you should be allowed to finish the film.
Yeah.
Right? But did that surprise you?
That's always a very difficult question because in a way it didn't, because by the time, of course, I'd been there quite a few times, but it made me feel very uncomfortable at times. And also it kept me awake at night. I asked everybody in the crew to constantly challenge me, and also the cameraman, to challenge us and tell us if we did anything stupid, if we were, it's very difficult to be aware of privilege in the first place and to recognize it. And I really wanted to have one or two scenes in which I discover it on camera so you could actually feel how that works. So I asked them, please help me with this and just accuse me whenever I do something stupid like this, a scene with the biscuit to the street kids, things like that. Which is uncomfortable, but also I think was really good for me because I learned a lot, and also for the film it's good because I noticed that in Holland many people get really uncomfortable with these scenes, with watching these scenes as well, because it's projecting. They can understand a little bit how they would behave when they're there, and it's pretty much the same. And we honestly do very stupid things when we're in a country like northeastern Congo. So, but did it surprise me? I was actually, because Guy is a good friend of mine, the interpreter, and when he said I had to leave, it really hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you began this, this wasn't really the part of the film that you expected to be in, was it?
The voting.
Yeah.
No, the thing is that normally when you make a film, of course, you do extensive research and then you go making the film, and in your mind you have all the scenes there, and of course it's a documentary, so things change. But for this one, I thought if I really want to encounter my own privilege, I cannot do too much research because then I would have to recreate it when I go back to shoot. So we started filming actually quite a lot sooner than I would normally have started filming. So the research really was half to create this scenes with the privilege. So pretty much none of the scenes were written out before. It was really like every day we would shoot, and then in the end we would sit together with Gansa, the producer, and Tede Jack, the soundman, and then we would just talk about, okay, so what can we do tomorrow? Today we did this, what can we do? So it was really organic way of filming, really challenging also, because we would never know what we would do next day, but it really, for this film, it worked really well, I think.
Right. And so the whole concept of the film was evolving.
Yeah, it was. And also, at some point, I really thought that maybe we would do the edit together, me and for example, the producer. But that was really impractical. And then everybody had their own opinions. And I was thinking, it's better that I make my film, so then I can also, if it's a bad film, it's my responsibility. And then, but I can show them the film, and then they have like this disclaimer to say at the end of the film, okay, this is what we think of the film. So all these ideas were not written in a script; they just originated while shooting.
Right. And one of the most dramatic parts of the movie for me, anyway, was. And the most enlightening part of the movies was when you turned it over to the Congolese crew to see what they would focus on out in the streets. And for example, the public feeding that your crew saw. This is nothing unusual, but rather a remnant of colonialism, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. I find it difficult to if that's really true, but the thing is that I really somehow when I was talking to Gaius about him telling me to leave the country, and then we got into this discussion about if there's like a local filmmaker and there's you, it would be completely different. I mean, the angle, of course, I would film this side and they would film this side. It would be completely different film. So Mugabo, one of the characters of the film, actually was doing this little film. Like a platform asked him to show his city. And we just followed him, and it's just incredible that he focuses on the lake, which is beautiful, on the volcano, which is beautiful, on all the food you see in the streets, and all the people just doing their thing. But there were quite a lot of problems while filming it. People throwing rocks, and this there was this guy, this public beating, a guy who stole something, and they really beat him, and it was really upsetting. And it was really, as Gansa says in the film, this is what the film is about. For them, they don't show it because it's also part of their reality, but it's the same. Like I'm from Amsterdam, we have a big red light district, which is famous, and people come from all over the world to the red light district and to smoke marijuana. So if I would make a film about my city, I wouldn't go to the red light district. I wouldn't go to a coffee shop to buy marijuana because I know it's there. It's not my world. So for me, that was also very enlightening. This is just his way to show his world, his way of representation. It's important, right. I think.
Yeah, it is very amusing to think of what a Congolese crew would go into Amsterdam, what they would.
Yeah. I guess they would probably go to a coffee shop and to the red light district because this is all they hear about Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And the same way with if you were to go into the American South, to Georgia or Mississippi or something, what would you focus on?
Yeah, probably all the things I've seen on TV, no? The Trump voting people and things like that. Yeah, but there's a lot more, of course.
Yeah. Well, for me, it kind of emphasized that there is no objectivity in documentary filmmaking.
There isn't.
No. It's all point of view.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the director.
Yeah, but there is no objectivity, but it's really important that directors understand that there is no objectivity. And if you work, for example, as a Dutchman in a colonial country, that there's a power inequality. And that really, there was this saying, this writer, Anne Nin, and she had this saying, you don't see things the way they are, you see things the way you are. And this was in my mind all the time while shooting, because this is really it. Sometimes I would see something which I would thought really remarkable, and I really had to step aside and talk to the crew and explain to me how it is. And then there was a very logical explanation for things. So for me also it's like a learning process, and I'm really happy that I had the chance to do it like this, and to properly understand this.
Yeah. Well, what do you hope the audiences for this film take away from it?
I hope I had quite some screenings with NGOs through Zoom and also. And I noticed that many people find it awkward and they feel really uncomfortable because they, like some scenes with the biscuit with the street kids, for example, is really how we Europeans behave when we go to Africa, at least to places I've been to in Africa. And I really hope that people feel uncomfortable and they start asking questions if they see a film, that they try to grasp if they really see a film about a particular person in a particular country, or that they see a film that is really colored by the way the director films. So be critical at the films you watch and try to understand the problem and try to understand about privilege.
Yeah, but it is a dilemma too, because a lot of these NGOs are trying to raise money.
Yeah.
To help the people.
Yeah.
And so, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, the thing is, I'm really not opposed to NGOs. Most of the people working for NGOs, I find really nice people. The heart is at the right place. They want to help people who are not in a good shape. So it's not an attack on NGOs at all, the film, and also not my personal opinion. But the thing is, if you only make films about people suffering, because this is of course the films they make, they need money, and you cannot show happy people because then there's no money. Then you create this and you perpetuate this images. It's like a wall of misery. Then it becomes the truth in the Western world. And then they become victims, which they really aren't. Of course, there are some people, but many people are not. In Goma, I mean, it's like people get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, go to work, have dinner with their parents, and drink a beer with a friend and go to bed. It's just like here. It's not such a big difference. So I think NGOs should, in a way, try to find a way. I don't know how. I'm not working for an NGO, but try to find a way to better understand the real needs of the people there. So not doing it top down, but doing it way more bottom up and understanding local behavior.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance.
Extremely difficult, yeah.
Do you plan on working more with NGOs?
Well, I haven't been asked since this film, but I would if it would be a completely different kind of film. If they would do a campaign centered on a different perspective, I would do it. But if it would be the film I made 10 years ago, I would never do that again. I would never make a film again showing only misery and trying to shock people into giving money, because that's basically what we do with those films.
Well, this has been a really delightful conversation. What are your plans? What's your next project? What's coming up?
Well, there's always many plans, and of course there's nothing yet finalized, but I would like to make another film about this subject, so I'm really working hard for that, because I think it's really important, and this was like the first step I took myself, and now I'm understanding it a little bit more. I think there needs to be a second step. That sounds a bit vague, but I'm just beginning to think of an idea, but I hope that in a few years' time there will be a new film about this subject.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for making this incredibly important film. And
very welcome.
I hope more people will see it out there in the world. Is it getting out there?
It's getting out there, yeah, and especially now because festivals are starting up again, because many were cancelled, of course, the last months because of Corona. So now it's screening at more places, which makes me happy. And that's the reason to make this film, is to start a debate and to start a discussion. Yeah. And I hope that will happen also at your festival.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joris. We really appreciate you being part of this film festival, and I know it's going to generate a lot of discussion.
That will be great. And thank you so much for screening it and having me for this conversation.
Great.